we start to cross the line. Why don't you just give me a sign? There are many reasons I'm thinking of the last time.
Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see so many of you here. We're really excited to be hosting the call, Wendy and I, and looking forward to sort of sharing a little bit about Nudge. We've got the room selections in front of you, so please let Kim know which room you would like to go in the chat. I'm going to quickly just sort of pass around and give you a bit of an introduction to each of the rooms. So Francis, do you want to say a little bit about your room?
Yeah, so me and Vicky Alvarez, who's on the call, we're talking about how campaigns can lead to action and how how to do it, sharing how we've done some stuff.
Brilliant. Okay, and is Anna here from Plymouth City Council? I haven't seen you yet. So if she isn't, Anna and I are going to be in room 2, looking at how local authorities can best support local ownership and how you can create an environment where local ownership can thrive in communities. Jess, Wendy, do you want to do an intro for room 3?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Jess and I are going to be in conversation. So I'm kind of interviewing Jess, and I'll be adding comments about how important solidarity is, but also sort of how we found ourselves scaling and some of the tips, I guess, from some of the ways that we've gone about it.
And then Amy's in room 4, first steps to taking over a building. Amy, are you around?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Hi, Amy from Real Ideas. I'll be joined by Karen from the Village Hub and Debbie from the Zebra Collective, and we'll be sharing our experiences and lessons that we've learned along the way in terms of taking over buildings.
Brilliant, thank you. And then room 5, Community Assets Learning Network. Is Ed or Cassandra around?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ed from Locality, and yeah, going to be joined by my colleagues Cass and Stephen. We're going to be talking about some thinking we've been doing about creating a community assets learning network, which builds on one of the proposals from the Protecting Community Assets inquiry, and sharing some findings from some research we've been doing with Power to Change in 5 areas about sustainable community asset ownership.
Brilliant, thank you. So hopefully that gives you a real range of rooms. We wanted to kind of really reflect the journey that you go on with ownership. So hopefully you can find a room that gets you interested. Okay, great. So I'm just going to, can I share my screen? So we're going to kickstart with a little film of Nudge, just to give you a flavour of what it's like down here in Plymouth. So we're taking over a range of empty buildings all in one street, and obviously at the moment you can't come and visit, but hopefully you can soon. But hopefully this gives you a little flavour of what we're doing, and then Wendy and I will just sort of have some reflections on this as well before we go into the breakout rooms.
Sam, if you could you show the next slide while Hannah just has a quick look at the technical side of that video? I'm Bob Toost, everyone, by the way. I'm not sure if one of the conveners of this this network, and we're delighted to have this thing on assets today. A couple of things I just wanted to say before we go into the next video and then into the breakouts. You will be aware, and actually Ed mentioned it briefly in his introduction, that we've been involved over the last sort of year or so with a number of people on this call in something called the Protecting Community Assets inquiry. I'm going to put the link into the report that was produced last year, or maybe the year before. The years roll into one these days, it seems. So you can have a look at it. But it's worth saying that there's lots of work progressing, and including people from Nudge, some of the Power to Change, and many others. We are progressing some very interesting, year before, David, there you are. We are progressing a lot of the recommendations in there. So that inquiry and one of the recommendations around creating a learning network around assets. So that's one of the things that Ed and the team will be talking about. And there are various assets on this call involved in a pilot for creating a community asset protector. So you may be interested in that, and please do get in touch if you want to know more or may want to get involved. The other thing that's up on your screen now, which is very exciting, is potential to be a trustee director at Power to Change. You can see the words on the screen, but I don't know, Vidya, you're on the call. Do you want to say anything at all about that?
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Vidya at Power to Change, for those of you who I don't know. So we are doing a big refresh of our board. We've just launched a new 5-year strategy, and we really want to have a really solid core community leaders at the heart of our board. So we're looking to take on 3 new community business leader or community leader trustees. So the deadline for applications is the 4th of July. We try to make it really simple. You just have to answer 4 questions. There's a short video that you can watch if you want to find out more. The link's up there. So just answer 4 questions, and then there is an interview and kind of a chat with one of our trustees, but no CV, no kind of complicated process. So if you are interested and think you'd like to help us shape our next 5 years, then please do look at the website and see if it's for you. Thanks, Bob.
Great opportunity. Do have a look. Hopefully there's some people on the call that will be up for that. And then the only other thing I wanted to say before we get back to Hannah or into the breakouts was that we're having a CB Patchwork summer holiday. So the next couple of months, we won't have calls, but we will, again, following that. Oh, some music seemed to work there. Was that you, Hannah? Being ready?
No, it's Sam. Sam's saving the day, I think.
Sam's saving the day. Great. Well, those were all the messages I had. So maybe over to Sam to save the day, and then we can go into the breakouts. Thank you all.
Hopefully the suspense. Well, I guess, oh, here we go. Thank you, Sam. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a kind of quick feel for what it's like along Union Street at the moment, which is where we're focused. But we kind of also wanted to do a quick reality check as well. So Wendy's just going to share what it, or the less shiny things about Union Street, I guess.
Hi. So we've scaled rapidly since starting, but we just wanted to kind of just say that it isn't without huge amounts of kind of sleepless nights and some dark Januaries as well, when we seem to always get a building late on the previous year, and then we come back after Christmas thinking we'll be all refreshed, and then have the reality of an empty building, often without any electric on, often with a new pest. We've met spiders, we've met rats, and we're now meeting pigeons in the millennium. And you know, we're kind of very hands-on as well in terms of trying to pull those buildings through, because often at those points we haven't necessarily got the full budget to be able to sort of make a really big splash with each building. But it's through that encouraging people in as well to see the starting points, I think, that has been also contributed. In hindsight, in our first building we did that, and then we do that on purpose with each building going forward, to get as many people in early doors so that they can really see the starting point and then appreciate the points that we get to in the future. The other things that we just wanted to quickly sort of put on the call were that, you know, through the hard work, and people will appreciate this, I'm sure, in their neighbourhoods, that you often then start to pique the interest of the market around you, and everyone sort of wants to come and be a part of it. And whilst that's brilliant because it unlocks more buildings and it creates more vibrancy in the neighbourhood, it does mean that we aren't necessarily going to have the benefit, the uplift and the value and all of that sort of stuff around those assets. And we recently missed out through a cash bidder, but I guess we should just have said to the owner that we were also a cash buyer, because we had the money to be able to move on the property. But we were going to have the first community-owned aquarium shop on the street, because we wanted to retain what we knew our families in the area went into, and they shopped and they bought fish and they loved it. And we just thought there could be a really lovely sort of Instagram post of the angel fish on a Friday or something. But unfortunately, through that cash bidding process, we missed out on it. And that property though has remained empty since it's been done up. And although someone looked like they were moving in, I think it's fallen through. So it's remained empty for almost, I think, a year, if not 18 months. And had we have had it, we wanted to retain that business there. And then on the last building that you saw in the video, we have been trying for 3.5 years to purchase that building. And we finally got it in September of last year. I think we're a little bit overwhelmed to start off with, because it had been off on, and money had been transferred and then it had to come back. That when we got it, we were, I think it would be fair to say, a little bit overwhelmed. And then when we did the video, the film, to say how excited we were, we said probably about 15 or 20 times we're really excited, but didn't necessarily feel that excitement. It is a big building, but on the video it doesn't look half as big as when you go inside it. But we are now finally really excited about that building, about bringing funding options together to try to revitalise it.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, and we just really wanted to kind of say that there's power in us all being together and sharing those journeys, and in an honest way as well. I know that lots of community businesses that we've been speaking to are feeling really tired and overwhelmed. So hopefully this workshop kind of session will give you a chance to reflect on that, be really honest, and share your journeys as well. And we hope you find it really useful. So we're going to hand over to send you off to your breakout rooms. Enjoy. Thank you. Okay, I hope everyone's had really good conversations and enjoyed the group chat. Just to finish off, we've got 10 minutes, so just thought it would be great to hear from each of the rooms, just a couple of minutes sort of summary of what's been happening. So it was obviously really hard to choose, and it does always feel like you're missing out. So Frances, are you able to just give a quick overview of your discussion?
Yeah, sure. So we had a select group, and so Don Carlos and Vicky spoke about Save Latin Village, or the Latin Village campaign, and then there was Corner Community Plan, which came out of the campaign very early on as the actual viable alternative to the existing development. And I spoke about Atmos Totnes, which is our proposal for the redevelopment of a acre milk processing plant down in Totnes, and how we took that through planning, and we also have a community plan for that site as well. And so we had a really interesting conversation. Sorry, that spotlight is really, really disturbing. I'm just going to put it back on gallery view so I can't just see a big picture of my face with a big light shining on it. Questioned. Yeah, so we had a really good conversation about really those two sites, so one in Tottenham and Totnes, and so how both of those were about one about meeting local need and what was necessary in those places. And I think with Latin Village that already exists, and in Totnes we were saying this is what we need, and this is how we can bring it about, both really, really viable and kind of like internal economic engines. And just really that there was no support there's no support there from any of the institutions you would expect to get support from. So, you know, in London, no support from Haringey or TfL, in fact actively blocking that kind of energy. And then also in Totnes, no support from our district council, and certainly not from the landowner. And so it's just kind of what you need to do to kind of the amazing kind of energy you have to put into that stuff. And with Latin Village, it's been 17 years, and in Totnes it's been about 13 years. But how that kind of getting the resources together, the fundraising, the raising the profile of it, telling people that you're basically being told that it's not your right, and then people being really angry about that and saying, well, what can I do? And then how the fundraising and the sort of awareness raising leads to more people coming along, and how even though kind of have to sort of pay for different bits of work, you sort of putting together bits of money all the time and sort of doing it in quite a sort of iterative sort of way. And that's different to developers who just have a big pot of money and some people they employ to do legal and all that kind of stuff. Actually, what that enables you to do is work with people, build loads of like resource and capacity, and then get people working with you really, really believing it and really want, you know, so the lawyers and the architects and things. So it's so much more meaningful when you actually win. Yeah, that's basically the general stuff. Oh, and that social media and the media are really important for scrutiny and support of people who are funding you, and national stuff and international when it comes to Latin Village.
Yeah, just opens that all up, doesn't it? Brilliant, thank you. Anna, are you able to give a quick summary of what we were talking about in group 2?
Yeah, so looking at it from the perspective of local authorities and how local authorities can support. And we talked about, some of the kind of policies and processes that have really helped here in Plymouth. I work for Plymouth City Council. But then we also had some input from people in other places about projects that are going on. A community worker who was working with an organisation, so not involved in, the land and property team or the economic development team like I am. And some of it is just about finding information, finding case studies of organisations that have done it before. And one of the things that I remarked that, has particularly worked well, I think, in Plymouth is developing those relationships. So there's an understanding on both sides, and that develops into trust that we can kind of, move these projects up the political agenda, political with a small p as well as a big P, and make sure that they're seen and heard and respected and championed by other people across the council. And some of that is helped by policy, some of it is helped by the data that underpins a lot of the business cases and the decisions that we make. And some of it is underpinned by really leveraging social value in our spend, about finding ways to create opportunities for joining up big capital projects with community organisations through mentoring or spend, or even just raising awareness and visits, that kind of exchange of knowledge. So look for all of those opportunities.
Yeah, lots of little nudges, basically. Okay, Wendy, Jess, want to do a quick summary?
I'm happy to, Jess, and pitch in, and others happy for them to pitch in as well. So we, Jess and I had a conversation about, first of all, about how we scale, and we talked about not predicting and controlling and writing business plans and feasibility studies too early, and really a bit of a pushback on some of that around the funders often want to see things in place that actually start to take away the agility and the iterativeness, if that's a word, of how you want to assemble and scale and how you want to think about that project. Jess gave a lovely anecdote from Lulu about when you learn to ride a bike, you don't start to write a business plan. You get on the bike and you do your best to pedal, stay upright, and you adapt to the environment. And actually that's what we talked about as our approach to scaling. We also talked about Hastings. They've had 75 different funding pots of money go in, so relationship management on that and monitoring that, not all at once but over the years. You know, that's something else really, isn't it, that also needs to kind of be thought about. And then we talked about our differences, about whether we're noisy or quiet when we're scaling, and whether when we go out and do we campaign early or do we try and get the building early. And so that's where we had quite a lot of difference. And I think that's because we can in Nudge, that we have the ability at the moment, because the market is bringing properties out, or we're nudging through our relationships to be able to buy those properties. Whereas in Hastings, it's been more of a campaign that's been needed to be able to then go and get the buildings. And Jess spoke about how difficult it was was it All Valley, I think it was, that they'd got a lease for 3 years. They put some really amazing plans together for 80 eco homes, but actually after 3 years, the land was sold on and they were evicted. But never to see that as a failure, because actually you've learned so much along the way that then you transfer onto something else. And the Observer building may not have happened as a result, because they would have been busy on the 80 eco homes. And similarly for Nudge, we were trying to coordinate the Palace, trying to get that way back in the day. Had we been able to swing that, then we actually wouldn't have done Union Corner. Hadn't we done Union Corner, we wouldn't have done the Clipper, the Plot, or got the Millennium. So actually that cliche of one door closing does mean that another will open. And just talked about how important friends, funders and peers were in terms of solidarity. And then also talked about darning the fabric, the love that you bring through not predicting and controlling and having too many plans. Sorry, I'm going to hurry up. And then the NIM and then the land exchange. So we spoke about that. So there we go. Thank you.
Sounds like a brilliant conversation. And then, so really quickly, we've just got a couple of minutes. Amy, do you want to do a quick summary on your room?
I can make it very quick for you, no worries at all. So yeah, we just had a really good conversation. So Karen and Debbie shared their experiences, their journeys, how they've kind of moved through their acquisition of buildings so far, and how they've kind of planned and worked with the community to develop that as well. We just spoke about the whole thing being like this Rubik's cube of like shifting priorities like constantly, and that's fine, that's like totally okay, and that you don't need to know everything like to start with, that you just kind of learn as you go, and that's totally fine. So Debbie was talking about kind of the 3 areas. So obviously you've got your building, your renovation, you have your feasibility, and then your fundraising. And it's like obviously important to connect your community whilst you're doing that, kind of to link with their need and what they want. And Patrick shared some really good stuff from a local council perspective. But ultimately, you know, it was about being bold. And if you're going for a private building, just sort of be bold and go and speak to landlords and just kind of go for it, really, and see what happens.
Brilliant. Okay, and last but not least, Ed.
Thanks. So we were discussing this idea of a community assets learning network, which essentially we hope will be a regular forum for bringing people together to share best practice around protecting, sustaining community assets. And we essentially had a kind of trial run of that, where we did a deep dive into the work which Cass and Stephen have been doing with Past Change in 5 areas, with learning on sustaining community assets. It's obviously been happening during the time of the pandemic, so some really interesting learning about that. I guess a couple of key things which came through in the discussion: real focus on the fact that practice isn't equitable kind of across the country. Real focus on different local authority practices, some good, some less so. Also the same in terms of kind of how funders are operating in that environment too. So how do we sustain the good practice more consistently across the country? Also then really interesting discussion that came out of the research, that there's perhaps kind of fewer kind of traditional community asset transfers of community centres happening, more stuff happening around kind of commercial properties, high streets, and a big discussion about community-led housings. Some people seeing that as potentially the golden goose, but we discussed whether that was the case or not.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Well, it's been so good to spend the morning with all of you and to see some friendly faces. I hope you find it all useful, and we'll certainly be following up with like promised resources and links and all of that sort of thing, so that you'll be able to make the most of the morning. Thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, enjoyed it. Bye.
Great, bye.